Good evening. It's November the 5th.
It is 6:20 p.m.
My little friend. Anyway, in Vernon, BC. And I guess, like a lot of people, were trying to digest the election in the United States. It's a it's a major election in the world. The world really pays attention to it. I've followed it, really quite a bit. In 2016, I flew to New York in, I think it was the 24th or, yeah, 24th of October. And I stayed for, I think, 3 days or 4 days, I forget. And the reason I went, one of the reasons I went, I spotted a good deal to fly to New York from Kelowna. And I wanted to see where this Donald Trump was coming from and whatever. So I went to New York. I went to his. I got something coming up here. I went to his hotel, a big tower skyscraper on, I guess it's Fifth Avenue. Went there, looked around it there, went up in the building a bit, and went up on all his escalators. He has escalators going like zigzag, zigzag all the way, not up to the 99th floor, I don't think, but it goes up a long ways. And that's the main picture that they had on the news of him and his wife coming down the escalator, and he announced he was going to run for president. And when I was there was a small group of women outside demonstrating with handmade signs and stuff like this, and they're laughing and joking and running, just, I don't know. They were, but they had media there, was trying to take pictures of it and whatever. But the thing is, I'd followed him for quite a while, and I'd been watching all his rallies. And I was really impressed by that. And they all said, oh no, he didn't have a chance to win. And I thought to myself, they are wrong. So I came back, and I spent the most enjoyable evening watching television I have ever in my 86 years on November the 8th, 2016. I remember sitting down here, and I got ready about 4 or 5 o'clock, and started rolling in, and by 6 o'clock, I think it was, the crap hit the fan, and all these left-wing stations and TV stations and pundits and guys, their jaws were dropping, and they were all beside themselves. They couldn't believe what was going on. And I just enjoyed it so much. I'll never forget it. I'll never see anything like that again in my life. But right now is a sad time, because anybody who watched the people running for the United States, you can say what you like. The United States is the premier country in the world. And it's basically the most powerful, richest, most powerful. I think most likely has the biggest armies and all that sort of stuff, navies. And to look at who was running against Donald Trump, and to think that they would be in charge of that, it just, that's just crazy. But what I'm watching now is they're claiming that Joe Biden is going to beat him, and he may end up doing that. Who knows? But they're still counting votes, and they're finding that there's a lot of a lot of fraud going on. Donald Trump predicted that a couple of months ago. He said with this COVID and mail-in ballots and everything, it was a prime deal for fraud. I guess that's proven true. For instance, he was up, what was it, 400,000 votes in Pennsylvania at night, and like at 10 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning, they brought in, I don't know how many 100,000 votes overnight, in the middle of the night. And they've refused to have Republican monitors at the polling station or the counting stations. Only Democratic people, and you know that's not legal. And they're doing that all over the place. They don't want anyone to see what they're counting. That's ridiculous. So I think it's going to end up some kind of a legal battle over this election more than anything else. And it all depends on who's got the best legal, I guess, now. But the thing, though, that is really more disturbing than that is to realize that the United States has gone to a depth of corruption, and a lot of people don't believe it because they believe the media, a terrible media. You know, Jesus said that Satan is the prince of the air, and I think he also said that Satan is the god of this world. Well, that must be true, because to see the corruption, and the thing is, in the United States and places, most of the problems they're having is in democratically run states, where the Democrats have been in power for 50, 75 years, maybe even up to 100 years. And that, being in power that long, creates corruption. There is no doubt about it. No doubt. But to think that a country can rise to that kind of level and then destroy itself, which has happened in many nations around the world, but that's what's happening right in front of our eyes. They're going to be destroyed by their own corruption. And it's getting so, what was a jewel of a country is going to be a mess. It's going to be destruction of some kind, I would assume, because they're bringing this on themselves, which is always the way in countries that go from, you know, whatever to where they are democratically allowed to vote themselves into oblivion. In other words, to vote themselves out of existence by asking for more and more and more and more and more. And the politicians promising more and more and more to get elected, even if they lie afterwards. And people keep believing it. That's a strange thing. I mean, everyone is susceptible to some kind of deception, I suppose. But it's hard for me to understand how people can believe the media when it is so one-sided. You know, just about 100% one-sided. You know, that can't be right, and it isn't right. But I would guess we're watching, and absolutely, people alive today, if they could watch and if they could understand, they would realize they are seeing a plan being carried out. God will decide who's going to be the president of the United States in the next couple of days. Whether it's going to be Donald Trump or Joe Biden, one or the other. It'll be his choice. It says that. He always God picks who is going to run nations, not the ones you think sometimes. And maybe the most lowest base people in the world, he picks them for a certain reason, to run it for a certain while. And I mean, we don't really know that, so I'm quite sure there's a lot of people asking God to support Donald Trump, and there's maybe not quite as many asking for Joe Biden because they're basically anti-God believers. They don't want anything to do with that. So it's hard to say. the the thing is, we have this kind of an election going on next door to us, and what happens down there definitely affects what happens here. We have quite a bit. We've got a lot of corruption going on in our own federal government right now. Terrible corruption by somebody who was brought up by a corrupt person, so I guess he does the same thing. But they put Canada into debt. They're trying to wipe out the founding nation races in this country, and all for political purpose. Couldn't care less about people. They want to get them in for votes. They're talking about a couple million a year in a small country like this. So, or a small population like this. Yeah, it's sort of funny. In the United States, California, which is the size, a population of Canada, a couple minutes after the polls closed, they declared all the winners. Just like that. In Pennsylvania, I believe Trump was up like 400,000 votes at about 10 o'clock at night, and I think 89 or something percent of the vote was in. There was no way that it should go over, and they refused to call it. In other places, they called it right away. But, such. I really don't know, in a way, unless, to tell you the truth, unless God intervenes and decides that he's going to be the president, I think they're going to win with their fraud and corruption, because they do not want Donald Trump as president for another 4 years. He could do the country a lot of good in 4 years, that's for sure, if he got in, I think. Mind you, they didn't win the Congress, so that's a big problem. They got quite a few more seats, but they didn't win. I think they won the Senate, or kept the Senate, which we don't vote that way or anything, so our voting is a lot different. In the states, it's really a mixed bag. The individual states have so much power in how they vote, who they vote for, and how they come to it, and how they pick a president. All this is just a mishmash. It's just a mess. You would think by now they would have come up with a better plan, a more uniform plan across the country. They have the Electoral College, which does protect the big states from taking over, but the Democrats want to get rid of that too, because they want to just get New York, Florida, Texas, and California, and that's it. They don't need any others. Yeah, well, United States is quite a large country, 350 million, 335 or whatever it is. They're a pretty large country, so mind you, India is a democracy, and they vote 1.3 billion. China doesn't bother voting. They don't need to. I think something will happen there someday too. Might be quite a while though. It's funny how about 1 million people in the Communist Party in China can take over and actually run 1.3 billion. Yeah, it's like the mafia running. That happens everywhere. That's why I guess really the world will end. It will destroy itself. But God says He'll stop it before it totally destroys itself. So that's another thing. I got word of another friend of mine that died the other day, or guy's wife. They were married for 68 years. They were a real pair. They were really a pair. Yeah, they were a married couple. There's no doubt about that. I never saw them argue about anything ever. And they were friends of ours. The trouble is, they were like a lot of people. They poo-pooed the idea that God is not, there's no judgment with God. And I don't believe that. I believe there is a judgment. And I believe that one should be, very cognizant of that fact that God will be judging people, all of them. And there's a penalty for judgment. And let's face it, in this generation, there's, I don't know how big a percentage are that don't believe it. Even the ones who claim they're Christians and stuff like that, many of them don't really believe it. They go there for I don't know what they go there for really, but for political purposes maybe, I don't know. But I think the same old thing applies that has applied for a long time, even with a lot of religions, man-made religions, hundreds and hundreds of them. That if you're a good person, God will take you into His kingdom and give you a new life. You will go to heaven. That's what they say. And that is totally untrue. Not that I say it's untrue, it's just if you read the Bible and believe the Bible is the Word of God, which I totally do. It's been around for a long time, and God says that every word in there is true, not just the concept of it. Every single word. And I believe that. And the big problem is in the United States, there's a lot of children murdered every day, thousands. And they obviously don't think there's any retribution for it, or that God's good judgment is nothing to worry about. Obviously, that's what it is. And many of them think they're good people. In fact, most of them do. Yeah. But anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see who actually ends up being the President of the United States in the next, I don't know, should be next while. I don't know if it's days or weeks or whatever. I was quite upset about it when I watched the election, but in a way I was sort of expecting it. And it was disappointing, very disappointing to think that they've gone that way. I mean, he won, basically he did win the election, and now they're taking it away from him. That's basically what's going on. Yeah, and there's a good chance to succeed because they've got enough. They got all the media is their mouthpiece, and they've got a lot of judges. Like not Supreme Court judges so much, but local judges to ram things through. Yeah. Well, I guess I should most likely put a little wood on the fire there. That's a pretty good fire, you know. Yes, can feel the heat right from here. Yeah, well, I most likely should keep that going and save on the heat bill this winter. Okay, until we talk again, thank you very much. Goodbye.